The scent of burning roses hangs in the air, thick, nauseating, cloying. You're 14. The silk robe clings to your trembling shoulders, damp from the heat of the Roman baths. You've bathed twice today. Your skin is raw. The attendants scrubbed. You clean with salt and citrus until the blood ran thin from your pores. They told you the emperor likes his favorites to smell like crushed petals and fear. You sit on the marble bench, ankles crossed like they taught you, though your legs ache. The doors open and the music of 1,000 strings floods in. But it isn't music. It's a performance, and you are its final act. They shaved your head, painted your lips. Tonight, you wear the gown of a ghost. You remember her name, Papaya, the empress, dead now, dead because of him. And now he wants you to replace her. Not just her role, but her body, her soul. You don't understand how that's possible until they bring the blade. Not all the screams come from your mouth, Dean. The coming days, they will call you Sporus, a word that means seed, but you have none left to give. They will say the emperor married you in front of 1,000 guests, that he gave you jewels, paraded you in silks, called you his wife. But you'll remember this night when your name, your voice, your body, your boyhood, all bled into the cold stone floor, and Rome, drunk on its own madness, applauded. You weren't the only one reshaped for power, but you were among the most silent. He was never meant to rule, not really. He was meant to reflect power, not hold it. A golden mask placed on the pale, teenage face of a boy who still dreamed of lyres and theater. You can almost see him, 16 years old, standing beneath the giant eagle of Rome. The crown feels too large for his head. The robe itches. His fingers shake when he lifts the scroll to address the Senate for the first time. But his mother stands just off stage, watching, correcting, commanding. Agrippina, the younger widow of an emperor, sister of a monster, daughter of the most ruthless bloodline Rome ever bred. She does not whisper, she orders. The empire sees Nero rise, but what it doesn't see, what it refuses to see, is the hand inside the puppet, her hand. At night, she walks the corridors of the palace barefoot, silent, listening. She enters her son's chambers without knocking, inspects the letters on his desk, chooses which visitors he may see, and always, always reminds him, "You are emperor, because I made it so." At first, Nero accepts it. He is a boy who wants approval more than authority. He recites speeches like poetry, hosts games like a jubilant priest. He sings, he writes, he performs for the people like a god made of silk and sunlight, but slowly, performance bleeds into paranoia. Because a mask, once worn too long, begins to adhere to the skin. And Rome, ancient, leering, blood-fed Rome, begins to cheer for the mask more than the man. The palace changes. The air grows thicker, curtains lengthen, candlelight dims, and silence becomes strategy. Whispers ripple through the marble halls like serpents through grass. Agrippina's name is on every tongue, though never spoken above a hush. The senators grumble, the generals brood, and Nero listens. You are not your own, you are hers. He begins to hate the shape of his own reflection, the outline of her ambition clinging to his back, like a shadow that won't peel off. And then, one day, he decides to be free. She is lured to her villa with the promise of reconciliation. A banquet, music, laughter. Instead, she finds knives. They say she begged for her life. They say she told the assassin, "Strike my womb first, for it birthed such a son." He doesn't watch her die. He doesn't need to. In his mind, she dies 1,000 deaths each time he smiles on stage. Each time the crowds chant Nero, Nero, like he was born of gods, not a mother. And now, with Agrippina's silence bought in blood, Nero is alone. But alone is a dangerous place for a boy who only ever existed through performance. He builds his Rome in images. He sings in the theater as slaves collapse from heat behind the curtains. He races chariots while the poor starve in alleys just beyond the Colosseum walls. He forces senators to applaud poems written in the blood of his rivals. His dinners last 12 hours, peacocks roasted in gold. Wine dyed with crushed rubies. He stages fake drownings for entertainment. Real ones, too. The line fades. Inside the palaces, the air no longer smells of lavender. It smells of oil, of metal, of fear. And yet, they still cheer. Because Nero doesn't rule Rome. He performs in Rome. He seduces it. When he smiles, people smile. When he cries, they weep. Even as the executions pile up, even as the laws twist into threats, even as friends vanish into the night, one by one. You might think the cruelty began in the courts or on the battlefield. But no, the first line crossed was in the bedroom. They say he murdered his wife with a single kick. They say she carried his unborn heir. They say he wept for days, not out of guilt, but frustration, because he hadn't meant to destroy her. He meant to own her. That moment, that rupture, becomes a hunger he cannot feed. He doesn't want obedience. He wants resurrection. He wants to bring her back. Not just her voice or her face, but her entire being, reborn in another body. And Rome, sick with its own apathy, will let him try. The empire does not crumble with a war. It curdles from within. It rots behind silk drapes and painted smiles. It decays in bedrooms where emperors play gods and boys are turned into brides. But we're not there yet. Not quite. For now, Nero stands at the peak of his illusion. A man made of applause and shadows. A ruler who killed his mother, mourned his wife, and decided that reality was beneath him. Rome watches and claps. Because when the theater becomes the empire, the tragedy is no longer fiction. He was not Emperor of Rome. He was Emperor of illusion, and the cost of that illusion would soon be paid in flesh. She enters not through the front gates, but like smoke through a slit in the wall. Soft, golden, deadly, Papoya, Sabina. You don't remember her arrival, only the scent she leaves behind. Jasmine and ambition. A perfume that burns. She is already married when Nero sees her for the first time. And yet, she looks at him not like a ruler, but like a mirror, reflecting the god he so desperately wants to be. She does not bow. She glides through the palace, through his mind, through the space his mother once occupied. And Nero falls, not like a man tripping over love, but like an addict reaching for the next high. His longing is not romantic. It's chemical. It consumes him. First, he casts aside his wife, Octavia, cold, dutiful, dull, too quiet to be loved, too noble to be desired. He banishes her. Finally, he has her executed, her head delivered to Papoya as a gift, because this is how power loves, with knives instead of roses. And so Papoya becomes empress, not by chance, not by marriage, but by conquest. In public, she wears the empire like a gown stitched in diamonds. In private, she watches every door, listens to every servant, sleeps with one eye open, because she knows Rome only loves its queens until they speak too loudly. And Nero only loves until possession becomes a prison. Still, for a time, they dazzle. He composes songs for her, builds statues in her image, parades her through marble halls as if Venus herself had stepped from the sea. She is adored, envied, untouchable. But empires built on theater always have trapdoors beneath the stage. The child comes as an omen, a son, an heir, a vessel of eternal legacy. For once, Nero does not perform. He believes. He touches her belly like it's holy. But Papoya is not a goddess. She is flesh. She bleeds. And when the empire grows too heavy on her shoulders, she speaks. It happens in a blur, a night of wine and thunder. Argument in a shadowed room, and then a sound, not a shout, not a scream, a crack, like porcelain shattering. His foot, her stomach, the baby never draws breath. Popaya draws one last ragged one, then silence, just silence. Funeral, no parade of mourning, only a palace soaked in tension. Servants who won't speak above a whisper, a bed that still smells like her skin. Rome begins to whisper, he killed her. He killed them both. He responds with obsession. He orders a grand mausoleum, gold-lined, marble-veined, a temple for the woman he broke. He does not visit it, because grief for Nero is not about presence. It's about recreation. He doesn't want closure. He wants her. So he begins to search, not for comfort, not for redemption, but for a mirror, a living mirror. Someone with her eyes, her skin, her silence. And then he finds him, Sporus, a child, a boy, delicate as a wineglass. He is brought to the palace like a lamb wrapped in silk, frightened, small, beautiful. He doesn't understand why the emperor stares so long, why the attendants measure his hair, touch his face, inspect his walk. He doesn't understand why he's not allowed to leave. And then he is told he is chosen, not as a page, not as a servant, but as a resurrection. They call it marriage. But there are no vows, only blades. He is castrated, quietly, brutally. They say it was done under anesthesia, as if the absence of pain removes the horror. It does not, because pain is not only physical. Sometimes it's the absence of what was. Sporus bleeds for days. He cries for his mother. No one answers. When he wakes, they bring him garments made for Popaya, draped in purple, perfumed in jasmine. He is no longer himself. He is her, and Nero smiles. Because now, Popaya is alive again. But ghosts do not stay quiet forever. And this one still breathes. He did not mourn her. He recreated her in the body of a child who would never stop bleeding. You are not asked, you are chosen. That's what they say. Chosen to become something divine, something beautiful, something that cannot disobey. But you are not a prophet. You are not a priest. You are a boy, and the emperor has mistaken your face for a doorway to the dead. No one knows where you came from. Not truly. Some whisper that you were born to a minor noble, a child of soft blood and softer bones, taken as tribute to the palace. Others say you were a palace slave, always in the background, unseen, unwanted until now. But Nero doesn't ask about your past. He looks at you like an artist staring at raw marble, not with affection, but with intent. He sees her, Papaya, gone too soon, too loudly, too finally, and now he believes he can bring her back through you. It begins with a touch, not violent, not yet. Just a cold finger brushing your cheek in a marble corridor. A smile that doesn't reach his eyes. A quiet word. You remind me of someone. From that moment on, you stop being a servant. You become a vessel. The ritual is never spoken aloud. There are no scrolls, no laws, no priests. Only orders passed like poisoned wine from mouth to mouth. And then, the room. You are stripped, not just of clothes, but of self. Light in the chamber is soft, false kindness. You lie still on a table carved from ivory. Its smoothness is not comforting. It feels like a funeral slab. You are held down, not by chains, but by ceremony. And then the blade, tell you, it will be quick. They lie. You feel the pain not as a scream, but as a collapse, an unraveling from the inside out. When it is over, you are not unconscious. You are not healed. You are opened. And into that wound, they pour her memory. They do not let you see a mirror. For weeks, but you feel the transformation in everything. The clothes they dress you in, silk too soft, perfume too sharp. The way they walk you through the palace, not like a boy, but like an offering. They teach you to smile like her, to bow like her, to tilt your head in that same tragic curve. They paint your eyes. They pluck your brows. They whisper her name every time they speak to you. Soon, you are made to kneel before Nero. He holds out a ring. There are senators in the room, guards, witnesses. He places it on your finger and calls you wife. There is a ceremony, not in a temple, but in the theater, because Nero doesn't worship the gods. He worships the audience. He walks beside you in public, holds your hand, lifts your veil before the cheering crowds. To them, it is madness, but madness is the only law left in Rome. No one stops him. No one stops you, because you are no longer a person. You are a phantom, a ghost bride in a golden dress, drifting through the ruins of an emperor's grief. They give you Papaya's bedchamber, Papaya's slaves. Papaya's voice, at night, when the doors are shut and the guards fall silent, you remember the sound of your own name and how it once meant you. Now, it means nothing. Now, you are silence in silk. You are not allowed to cry, not because it is forbidden, but because Nero does not want tears from her, and you are her now. In the shadows, the court watches. They sip their wine, they nod, pretend. The emperor is grieving. They tell themselves, this is just sorrow in costume, but everyone knows. They just refuse to speak, because words are dangerous in Rome, especially when they name the unnameable. And no one wants to be the first to say that this is not grief, but possession, not love, but necromancy. You dream of escape, but there are no doors, only curtains and eyes behind them. You dream of death, but even that feels stolen. Because Nero has already buried you, you just happen to still breathe. Sporus was never meant to live. Not like this. He was meant to disappear. And that is what he becomes. A shadow in a bridal veil, a voice trained to echo a ghost. A boy rewritten until nothing of him remains. He was not married. He was mourned in reverse, turned into a memory before he ever had the chance to live. The sky above Rome doesn't darken. It burns. A curtain of bronze clouds tinged red by torchlight and superstition. The scent of jasmine and frankincense hangs so heavy in the air, it clogs the breath. Even the moon seems dazed, as if she, too, is being made to witness something sacred turned upside down. This is not a wedding. It is a seance in silk. The guests arrive in silence, though the music swells around them. Flutes cry gently from hidden alcoves. A harpist plucks slow, mournful notes as if counting down a clock no one can see. Togas shimmer, stitched with golden serpents and phoenixes. Creatures that slither, that burn, that rise from ashes. Because tonight, death wears a crown. Nero appears first. Not as a groom, but as a god actor descending the stage. His robe is embroidered with black pearls. His face powdered, painted with tears so precise they shimmer under torchlight. Not real sorrow, but the performance of it. He doesn't walk. He drifts, as if carried by invisible hands through smoke and prophecy. Then silence. And from that silence, you arrive, veiled in translucent white. Not the white of purity, but the white of surrender. You are led by eunuchs, ghost men in ivory, their faces carved into perfect, obedient stillness. You take no steps of your own. Your feet simply move, marble beneath you, eyes above you. History around you. They've rehearsed this, not just the words, the motions, the way Nero lifts your veil, the way you bow your head, the way he pretends to cry again, as if he's burying Papaya for the second time. There are rings, golden bands warmed by palm, sweat, and madness. There are vows. In life and beyond, you are mine. Nero's voice trembles just enough to seem human, because your silence has become the vow. He kisses you, not with passion, but with command, a seal placed on the spell. The crowd claps. They even laugh. Some weep. It's unclear whether they mourn the dead or fear the living. You are now married to grief, to madness, to an empire that confuses obedience with love. That night, you are carried through the palace on rose petals. Slaves scatter them in your path. A priest hums a blessing older than memory. The bed is papayas. The sheets still smell faintly of her. You are not asked to love him, only to be still, to be soft, to be her. The emperor wraps his arms around you, not like a lover, but like a child clutching a broken doll, desperate to pretend it's whole. You do not close your eyes, because even in darkness, you are expected to smile. From that night on, your life becomes a choreography of ghosts. You walk beside Nero in the forum, draped in silks you did not choose. You sit at his side during games, always smiling, always nodding. Your name is never spoken. You are only called wife, only referred to as her. And still, the people applaud. Because Rome has learned how to clap for horror so long as it wears gold. Inside, you are still Sporus, but no one remembers that name now. Outside, you are Papaya, resurrected, reimagined, rewritten, a statue, given flesh, but not voice. The court watches. They whisper, they drink, they call it a love story. They pretend it's romance. But every time Nero kisses you, you feel the cold tip of the blade again, the one that cut you open, that erased your boyhood, that made room for this. You were not loved. You were remembered too violently to ever be seen. You do not age, not because time has stopped, but because you were never allowed to begin. You are a painting hung in a haunted palace, a relic animated by cruelty, a living echo of a woman whose death was not enough. They called it a wedding, but what they witnessed was a resurrection carried out in silk and silence. The sky above Rome doesn't darken, it burns. A curtain of bronze clouds tinged red by torchlight and superstition. The scent of jasmine and frankincense hangs so heavy in the air, it clogs the breath. Even the moon seems dazed, as if she, too, is being made to witness something sacred turned upside down. This is not a wedding. It is a seance in silk. The guests arrive in silence, though the music swells around them. Flutes cry gently from hidden alcoves. A harpist plucks slow, mournful notes, as if counting down a clock no one can see. Togas shimmer, stitched with golden serpents and phoenixes, creatures that slither, that burn, that rise from ashes. Because tonight, death wears a crown. Nero appears first, not as a groom, but as a god actor descending the stage. His robe is embroidered with black pearls. His face powdered, painted with tears so precise they shimmer under torchlight. Not real sorrow, but the performance of it. He doesn't walk. He drifts, as if carried by invisible hands through smoke and prophecy. Then silence, and from that silence you arrive, veiled in translucent white. Not the white of purity, but the white of surrender. You are led by eunuchs, ghost men in ivory, their faces carved into perfect, obedient stillness. You take no steps of your own. Your feet simply move, marble beneath you, eyes above you. History around you. They've rehearsed this. Not just the words, the motions, the way Nero lifts your veil, the way you bow your head, the way he pretends to cry again, as if he's burying Papaya for the second time. There are rings, golden bands warmed by palm, sweat, and madness. There are vows, in life and beyond. You are mine. Nero's voice trembles just enough to seem human, because your silence has become the vow. He kisses you, not with passion, but with command, a seal placed on the spell. The crowd claps. They even laugh. Some weep. It's unclear whether they mourn the dead or fear the living. You are now married to grief, to madness, to an empire that confuses obedience with love. That night, you are carried through the palace on rose petals. Slaves scatter them in your path. A priest hums a blessing older than memory. The bed is Papaya's. The sheets still smell faintly of her. You are not asked to love him, only to be still, to be soft, to be her. The emperor wraps his arms around you, not like a lover, but like a child clutching a broken doll, desperate to pretend it's whole. You do not close your eyes, because even in darkness, you are expected to smile. From that night on, your life becomes a choreography of ghosts. You walk beside Nero in the forum, draped in silks you did not choose. You sit at his side during games, always smiling, always nodding. Your name is never spoken. You are only called wife, only referred to as her. And still, the people applaud. Because Rome has learned how to clap for horror so long as it wears gold. Inside, you are still Sporus, but no one remembers that name now. Outside, you are Papaya, resurrected, reimagined, rewritten, a statue, given flesh, but not voice. The court watches. They whisper, they drink, they call it a love story. They pretend it's romance. But every time Nero kisses you, you feel the cold tip of the blade again, the one that cut you open, that erased your boyhood, that made room for this. You were not loved. You were remembered too violently to ever be seen. You do not age, not because time has stopped, but because you were never allowed to begin. You are a painting hung in a haunted palace, a relic animated by cruelty, a living echo of a woman whose death was not enough. They called it a wedding, but what they witnessed was a resurrection carried out in silk and silence. The artist is dead, not in marble, not in gold, but on a cold villa floor, face down in his own blood, gasping, twitching, forgotten. A freedman held the dagger. History held the silence. And you stood beside him, still in silk, still. His phantom bride, still watching as the curtain finally fell. But freedom never comes. The death of Nero is not the end of your torment. It's just an intermission. Because you are not a person. You are a symbol, and symbols cannot run. Sporus, they call you, not your name, just the word, seed. Something buried, something grown in darkness. You are taken by a new general, Otho, a man who once admired Nero, who now wears his ring, quotes his verses, mimics his cruelty, but with less poetry and more hunger. You become a relic, not of empire, not of love, but of madness, a living souvenir of Rome's most decadent collapse. They parade you at court like a cursed statue. Behold, they whisper, the widow of the last Caesar. You are still in a gown, still veiled, still addressed in the voice of the dead. You learn to hold your face like marble, unmoving, untouched, unyielding, but inside, something begins to rot, not quickly, not with screams, but quietly, like bread left too long in the sun, like fruit left uneaten on an altar. Time passes. One emperor falls, another rises. Chaos becomes routine. And in the blood-drenched theater of Roman politics, even ghosts are recycled. Then comes Vitellius. He is not a poet. He is not subtle. He does not pretend to love art. What he loves is humiliation, spectacle, noise, and he has an idea. You hear it in whispers. At first, that Vitellius, bloated with wine and laughter, wants to stage a wedding. Not in a palace, in the Colosseum. He wants you as the bride, and the groom will not be a man, a wild animal. That is the plan. You, veiled in white, led into the arena. the crowd roaring like a tempest, and at the altar a beast trained not to kill, but to perform as your monstrous suitor. The people will cheer, they always do. When the gods bleed, Rome throws a festival. You say nothing, you do not scream, you do not beg. You've learned the cost of being heard, but inside something breaks. Not loud, not sharp, like the cracking of old bone, the sound of a soul pulling loose from the world. On the eve of the spectacle, you take your life. No records survive of how, only that you did. No grand words, no marble epitaph, no mourning crowd. Just silence, just absence, just another missing name in a city of a million ghosts. They say no one claimed the body, that your remains were dumped in a pit with the others, thieves, slaves, traitors, forgotten things. But somewhere, perhaps among the ruins, the scent of burning roses still lingers. Because what they never understood was that you were not the tragedy. You were the witness, the altar, the echo, and echoes do not die. They haunt. He died to escape the stage, but you died too. Escape the audience. Centuries pass, the marble crumbles, the villas fall silent, and yet his name survives. Sporus, a name that was never truly his. A name whispered, not spoken. A name buried in footnotes, in satire, in scandal. The historians argue, of course. They always do. Was he willing? Was he complicit? Was Nero mad? Was it grief, or was it hunger? Scrolls clash like swords, and still no truth, just fragments, shadows of a boy trapped in silk. But the echo survives. You feel it in the hush before a crowd roars. Clue in the space between ritual and ruin, in the rustle of a veil that was never meant to be worn by the living. Rome worshipped beauty, but only when it obeyed. It crowned the sculptor. It crucified the deviation. A woman could rule, but not too loudly. A man could bleed, but never from the heart. And a boy could be remade, reshaped, renamed, if the emperor needed a ghost to hold. Sporus was not a person, not to them. He was a gesture, a performance, a sigh wrapped in silk. He was Papaya, resurrected, not in body, but in outline, an illusion stitched together by imperial grief and narcissistic longing. And it worked. The court applauded. The priests blessed the union. The people watched, not with horror, but with morbid delight. It was all theater, even the pain, especially the pain, because Rome, for all its marble and might, was built on one thing: control of land, of story, of body. Even death had to be choreographed. Sporus did not die for love. He did not die for rebellion. He died because there was no place left in the script for someone who could not forget. A man pretending to be a woman, pretending to be a ghost. An emperor pretending to grieve while grooming his mirror. What remains isn't just cruelty. It's how easily it was accepted. How quickly silk can become a shroud. How quietly a boy can vanish inside a role he never chose. This is the genius of tyranny. It doesn't always arrive with fire and chains. Sometimes it comes with flowers, with vows, with a soft voice whispering, "You are loved," while it takes everything, and we, the audience, we applaud. Because it's easier to admire the performance than question the cost. Rome burned, but the theater lived on, not just in stone, in us. Every time we turn pain into entertainment, every time we confuse power with affection, every time we dress cruelty in the robes of ceremony and call it civilization, we echo Sporus, not his voice, his silence. He is not a footnote. He is a mirror, and the image it reflects is ours. History forgets the boy, but it remembers the costume.